The year was 2234, and Earth floated quietly in the endless dark. In the middle of the Pacific Ocean, on a lonely island of steel, the United Nations Deep Space Array listened to the sky. It had been listening for more than 50 years, collecting whispers from stars, echoes from dead worlds, and the steady hum of nothing. Most days were the same static, faint pulses from distant quasars, the rare flicker of alien radio noise. But then it happened. At 3:14 station time, the array caught a strange sound. 3 short pulses, a pause, then a scream.
Any screamer?
Human scream. The voice was raw, filled with terror, and it traveled through the speakers like a ghost breaking into the room. The duty officer froze, her hands hovering above the control panel. For a moment she thought it was a prank, or maybe some lost Earth signal bouncing off a far asteroid. But the signal came from deep space over 300 light-years away. She replayed it again. 3 pulses, a pause, a scream. The scream was male, young, desperate, and then just at the edge of hearing too. Words, "Help me." By the time the sun rose over the Pacific, every major government knew about the signal. Scientists worked in silence, trying to confirm if it was real. They found something impossible. The voice matched an old file captain, Elias Vega, a deep space pilot who had vanished 40 years ago in the Kepler frontier. His ship had been declared lost in a warp drive failure. No wreckage had ever been found. No survivors. No explanation. There was no way his voice could be 300 light-years from Earth. No way unless he was still alive. But even stranger, the coordinates where the signal came from were empty. All star maps showed only a thin cloud of dust. No planets. No stations. No reason for anyone to be there. In the great council chamber of the UN Space Command, leaders argued. Some said it was a trap. Others said it didn't matter. Humanity could never ignore a call for help. One admiral leaned forward and said what everyone was already thinking. If it's a trap, then someone out there thinks we're prey. There. About to find out we're not. Preparations began at once. Warships were recalled from patrols. Colonies donated fuel, weapons, and supplies. Civilian freighters volunteered to join the expedition, ready to carry whatever they might need. In less than a month, the largest fleet in human history gathered at the edge of the solar system. Hundreds of ships, battlecruisers, destroyers, carriers, and stealth corvettes waited in formation. Their engines glowing like a new constellation, they called the mission Operation Reach. Officially, it was a rescue. Unofficially, it was a warning to anyone who thought humanity was weak. But far away, in a region of space no human had ever seen, the signal had done its job. In the black shadow of a dead star, alien eyes watched. The signal was not an accident, was bait. Inside a ship shaped like a shard of obsidian. The Velther High Mistress leaned over a crystal console, her silver fingers tapping out commands. Around her, images of the human fleet bloomed in the air, slow-moving prey. Coming straight into her trap, she smiled, thin and cold. "Let them come," she whispered to her attendants. "We will take them apart, name by name, memory by memory, until no trace remains." Back at the fleet, no one knew of the Watchers. On the bridge of the flagship Dauntless, Admiral Juno Raines stood before the forward viewport. Now she had served through 3 wars, but never had she seen such unity. The ships were from every nation, every colony. They spoke different languages, but all understood the same thing. A human had called for help. That was enough. As the fleet prepared to jump, a final message was sent back to Earth. "We will return with our people, or we will not return at all." The jump drive countdown began. 10, 9, 8. In the array station back on Earth. The screen played again and again, echoing through the halls. 3 pulses, a pause, a scream. "Help me." No one noticed that the voice had started to change slightly, deeper, slightly slower, as if something, or someone, was speaking along with it. The fleet vanished into the fold of space. The trap was ready, far away, in the cold heart of the Velthor domain. A name that would one day be erased from all history waited to meet humanity for the first and last time. The jump ended in silence. One moment. The fleet was wrapped in the white blur of folded space. The next, stars exploded back into view. They weren't the same stars shown in the maps. Admiral Juno Raines leaned forward in her command chair, scanning the tactical displays. The coordinates were correct. They'd arrived exactly where the signal had come from, and yet the space around them wasn't empty. Instead of a thin dust cloud, a massive shadow filled half the sky. It wasn't a planet. It wasn't even a station. It was something far larger, a world the size of a small star system built of countless black plates stitched together like armor. It glowed faintly with rivers of molten light, veins of red running through the darkness. The fleet's computers struggled to process its scale. "Is that real?" one officer whispered. The thing was no natural formation. Someone had built this. Sensors reached out and came back screaming. Millions of life signs, hundreds of energy cores the size of moons. And then, a sight that froze every heart on the bridge. Thousands of human bodies drifting in orbit were frozen, pale, and wrapped in faint strands of silver. Some looked like they had been here for years. Some looked fresh. The comms officer's voice shook. "Admiral, we've identified one of the bodies. It's Captain Vega, the man." From the signal as the fleet maneuvered closer, the massive world shifted. At first, it seemed like a trick of light. Then, enormous gates began to open along its surface, revealing cities built inside vast, hollow chambers. From those gates came ships sleek, curved, and silent. They formed a perfect wall in front of the human fleet, their black holes drinking. In the light, a single message came through, carried not on radio waves, but directly into the minds of every human aboard the fleet. "Welcome. We have been waiting for you." On the bridge of the Dauntless, every crew member looked at one another. The voice was calm, musical, and yet beneath the beauty, there was something sharp, something cold. Then a form appeared on the main screen, tall, silver-skinned eyes like pools of liquid black. She was draped in flowing garments that shimmered as if woven from starlight. She smiled without warmth. "I am the voice of Velthor," she said. "You have traveled far. Enter our city. Speak with us. We are curious about you." The offer was almost polite. The way her eyes lingered on them felt like a predator studying prey. Admiral Raines kept her voice steady. "We've come for our people. Return them, and we will leave." Now the alien's smile widened, just slightly. "Yes, come closer, we will. Return. Now, all that is yours." As the transmission ended, Captain Ruiz at the tactical console leaned toward the Admiral. "Ma'am, I don't like this. If we go in there, we may never come out." Far beyond human sight, deep within the megastructure, alien machines stirred. The Velthor had been watching humanity for centuries. They knew how humans fought, how humans resisted. And they had prepared something humanity had never faced before, for the first time in years. Admiral Raines felt a chill run down her spine. Signal had been a lure. They had taken the bait. The alien gates swallowed the first human shuttles like the mouth of some ancient beast from the Dauntless. Admiral Raines watched the live feeds from inside the alien megastructure. The corridors were impossibly vast, so wide that entire skyscrapers from New York could have floated through them. The walls shimmered with silver veins, pulsing like blood under skin. In the distance, shapes moved, tall, graceful, and silent, watching from the shadows. The alien guides appeared without warning. Their skin gleamed like polished steel, their limbs long and thin, their movements precise and slow. Carried no visible weapons. Every soldier in the landing party felt it in their bones. These beings didn't need weapons. A voice, smooth as glass, filled the humans' minds. "Follow. The voice awaits." The landing teams were led into a city unlike anything seen before. Towering spires twisted toward a sky that wasn't sky at all, but a glowing dome of shifting colors. Roads hung suspended in midair, curving like rivers through empty space. At the center stood a palace of black crystal, its walls humming faintly. Inside, the humans met her again, the one called the Voice of Velthor. She sat upon a throne carved from a single block of obsidian. Gaze drifted lazily over the humans, as if deciding which one to speak to first. "You have come far for such fragile creatures," she said softly. "And you bring so many ships? Do you fear us?" Rain's envoy. Captain Dorian Hale stood tall. "We don't fear you, but we do want our people back." The voice's lips curled faintly. "And you will have them. All you must do. Accept our invitation." No one spoke for a long moment. "Invitation?" Hale asked. "To stay," she replied, "to live among us, to learn what we know." A soldier muttered under his breath, "Feels more like a trap." The alien's eyes flashed, and the soldier suddenly froze, his face twisting in confusion. Who am I?" he whispered. His own squad mates stared in horror. They couldn't remember his name. His face seemed strange, like they were seeing it for the first time. The voice tilted her head. "Oh dear, I seem to have misplaced him." The soldier's body still stood there, breathing, blinking, but in the minds of his friends, he was already gone. His name, his voice, his life, all erased in an instant. Captain Hale's hand tightened on his sidearm. "What did you do, too?" "Him. I simply removed the record," the voice said, almost cheerfully. "We have always done this. We take names, and when no one remembers, it is as though the person never was. We do not kill. We unmake." Back aboard the fleet, communications officers began to panic. Crew rosters were changing in real time. Entire entries were vanishing from the database. Some officers were suddenly missing from the ship, no one able to recall when they had been there. The Velthair were erasing them. The voice stood from her throne, every movement slow and deliberate. "You should leave now," she said, "before I forget you too." But humanity had not come all this way to turn back, and the Velthar, for all their elegance, did not yet understand the one truth that had shaped every human war. If you threaten one of them, you threaten all of them. The clock on the human fleet's survival had just started ticking. The first attack came, without warning. One moment, the fleet floated in uneasy formation outside the alien megastructure. The next, reality itself seemed to twist. Space folded open, and Velthar warships poured out sleek black blades, moving with impossible speed. They didn't fire lasers, missiles, or anything the humans could recognize. Instead, bursts of shimmering silver light swept over the ships. Wherever the light touched, crew members simply vanished, not dead, not injured, just gone. On the bridge of the Dauntless, Admiral Rains watched in horror as entire gun crews disappeared mid-battle. Officers shouted names into comms only to be met with blank stares. No one remembered the people they were calling for. "Helm." "Evasive. Fire at will," Rains ordered. Human ships answered with railgun fire and fusion torpedoes. Vessels were fast, but not invincible. Several shattered under the human barrage, scattering molten fragments into the void. Yet even in death, their hulls whispered, courting the names of those they had erased, feeding them into the alien network like trophies. On Mars Colony, in Titan's orbital city, civilians began to notice gaps in their memories. Family portraits now showed strangers. Official records lost entire bloodlines. It wasn't just the fleet under attack. It was humanity's history itself. Inside the Dauntless, Chief Science Officer Lena Moritz worked furiously at her console. "I think I know how they're doing it," she said. "They're using some kind of memory anchor inside quantum space. If we can create counter-anchors in our brains, we might stop the erasure." The catch was brutal. The process required neural implants that burned into the hippocampus, fusing memory pathways with artificial quantum locks. It was irreversible, and the survival rate was low. "We'll need volunteers," Rain said. Moritz didn't look up. "We'll have them. You know we will." Within hours, hundreds stepped forward. Pilots, engineers, Marines, men and women, willing to risk their lives just to remember. They sat in cold med bays as the implants were inserted, their faces pale. Under the harsh surgical lights, some screamed as their brains rejected the process. Others simply stopped breathing. But those who survived, They were immune. No Velthor light could touch their memories. The next battle was different. Anchored humans remembered the erased. They called out missing comrades by name, forcing the fleet to realize how much had been stolen. Fury replaced fear. On the fourth day of war, humanity struck back hard. Stealth corvettes slipped past the Velthar blockade, planting fusion mines on their gates. The explosions lit the alien megastructure like a second sun. Velthar ships scrambled in confusion. For the first time in centuries, they were losing prey. On the bridge of her flagship, the voice of Velthor watched the chaos with a frozen smile. "They have teeth," she murmured. "Good. I prefer my prey to fight before it ends." But somewhere deep inside her, a sliver of something unfamiliar stirred. Not fear, but recognition. She had seen humans fight like this before, long ago, and last time they had not stopped until the stars shook. The anchored humans became the fleet's spearhead. They led every raid, every boarding action, every desperate rescue. Where the Velthor silverlight erased memories, they stood unmoved in names and faces burning bright in their minds, immune to the enemy's greatest weapon. The aliens began to hesitate. For the first time, they faced prey that could not be made to forget. In the darkness between stars, the fleet learned fast. Captured Velthor tech was ripped apart, studied, rebuilt. Human engineers replaced alien. Grace, with brutal efficiency, turning delicate erasure emitters into focused pulse cannons. Designed to burn through Velthar holes, they struck first at the outposts closest to the megastructure. Stealth ships slipped in under cloaked drives, planting antimatter charges on power cores. The blasts tore through alien cities suspended in orbit, leaving nothing but molten shards drifting in space. In some raids, they freed survivors, humans who had been erased from history but were still alive, confused and terrified. Rumors spread through the fleet. In hushed voices, Velthor prisoners spoke of a time, thousands of years ago, when they had faced an enemy like this before humans. From a far-off cradle world, long before Earth's recorded history, the Velthar had erased them then, or so they believed. Yet here humanity stood again, as if history itself had refused to forget. In a war council aboard the Dauntless, Admiral Rains stood over the glowing map table. "We keep hitting the edges, but it's not enough. If we want to win, we take the fight to their heart." Chief Science Officer Moritz pointed to a point deep inside the Velthor star charts. They're the center of their network. Crap. Memory theft, every erasure, comes from this place. Destroy it, and their power collapses. The room fell silent. The location was no planet, no station. It was something else, something alive. Velthar prisoners whispered its name in fear. The world mind. Rains didn't hesitate. Set a course. We end this. 3 days later, the fleet crossed into forbidden space. Velthar defenses grew desperate, throwing everything in their path. Yet anchored humans tore through them, ships burning in their wake. Every light-year closer brought stronger resistance, but also something stranger. Velthor broadcasts, pleading for parley. On the bridge, Captain Hale frowned at the latest transmission. "Admiral, they're offering talks. First time they've ever tried." Rain stared out at the stars. "That means we're scaring them." "Good. Press on." In the cold darkness ahead, the world mind wetted a chained, living moon whose heartbeat echoed across the void. Humans were coming, and for the first time in centuries, the Velthar were running out of time. The world mind filled the view screen like a nightmare given shape. It was no planet, no machine. It was a living moon, its surface a pale, pulsing flesh, crisscrossed by vast black chains of energy that anchored it to the surrounding Velthor megastructure. Its heartbeat was slow, but powerful enough that the fleet's sensors felt it as a steady tremor in space itself. Around it, an armada waited, thousands of Velthor warships in perfect formation, their black hulls shimmering under the living moon's light. They did not fire. They simply waited, as if daring humanity to take the next step. On the bridge of the Dauntless, Admiral Rains studied the target in silence. "If we kill that thing," she said, "we end their control. We erase the erasers, Chief Science. Officer Moritz shook her head. We also kill whatever intelligence is inside it. This isn't just their weapon, it's their civilization's heart. Without it, every Velthair will die. Rain's jaw tightened. After what they've done, I'm struggling to see the downside. Before the attack order could be given, the Cums lit up not with a voice in their minds, but an actual transmission.
Now the voice of Velthor appeared on screen.
She looked unchanged, elegant, and calm, but her eyes were harder now, as if the war had stripped away some of her poise. Humanity, she said, you cannot win. You've done more damage than any prey before you, and for that, I offer you something no prey has ever been given: peace. Leave now, and I will restore every name I have taken, every memory, every soul returned to your history. Walk away and live. The bridge crew exchanged uneasy glances. The offer was tempting to tempting. If she spoke the truth, millions could be restored. Families could be whole again. Rains didn't answer immediately. What's the cost? Alien's smile was faint, but cruel. You will never speak of us again, never write of us. We will erase ourselves from your minds, and you will thank us for it. A heavy silence fell over the bridge. It was not just a surrender she wanted. It was obedience, forgetfulness, a galaxy where the Velthair could continue in the shadows. Unchallenged, Captain Hale leaned forward. Admiral, if we take this deal, it's only a matter of time before they do it again. Rains turned back to the screen. We don't make peace with predators. We end them. The voice tilted her head, and for the first time, her expression faltered. Then you have chosen extinction. Not ours, Rains said coldly. The channel cut. All ships, Rains ordered. Her voice carrying across the fleet, target the chains. Break their heart free. Engines roared. Weapons charged. And in the shadow of the world mind, the final battle began. The first strike shattered one of the massive energy chains. A blast from the Dauntless's forward rail batteries tore through the glowing tether, sending ripples of light across the world mean's pale surface. The living moon's heartbeat surged, echoing so strongly that crew across the fleet clutched at their chests, feeling it like a drum inside their own bodies. The Velthair armada moved instantly. Thousands of black ships surged forward, their silver light sweeping the void. Memory erasure waves crashed against anchored humans with no effect. But an anchored crew screamed as names vanished from their minds mid-battle. Some ships went silent, not destroyed but lost to confusion, their crews forgetting who they were, why they fought. The anchored forces pushed through the chaos. Strike wings broke formation, diving between enemy lines to drop fusion torpedoes on the remaining chains. One after another, the glowing tethers exploded, spilling molten fragments of alien alloy into space. On the Dauntless, Rains kept her focus locked on the tactical map. Keep firing on those chains. Once it's free, it's done. Chief Moritz's voice cut in from the science deck. Admiral, I think the world mind is alive. Alive. Not just a brain, it's aware. And it's not resisting us. It's helping. Rains frowned. Helping. Every time we break a chain, the heartbeat gets stronger, sending pulses through subspace, jamming their coordination. Outside, Velthair formations were faltering. Ships were breaking off, confused, some even firing on each other. Then, with a soundless scream across the Cums, the final chain snapped. The world mind moved. Slowly, impossibly, the living moon turned its vast gaze toward the Velthair armada. Its surface split open, revealing an endless depth of burning light. From its core erupted a beam pure, blinding energy that swept across the alien fleet like a scythe. Ships dissolved into nothing in its wake. The voice of Velthair appeared on every human view screen at once. The elegance was gone. Her face was twisted in fury. You fools. You think it will spare you? You freed the only thing we ever feared, but Rains only said, good. The world mind's light spread wider, cutting down alien ships in swaths. The Velthair were breaking, scattering into the dark, and the humans followed, hunting, destroying, refusing to give them the chance to rebuild. For the first time in centuries, the predators were prey, and they were running out of stars to hide in. The last of the Velthor ships fell in a silence that felt too loud. Pieces of black hole drifted like dark snow across the fields of shattered stars. Where engines had burned, emptiness hung. The fleet moved through it slowly, methodical. They picked the living from the dead. They pulled the lost into airlocks and med bays. They brought back faces that had been gone, and names that should have been gone. On the Dauntless, the bridge was near empty. Crew members sat in stunned rows. Some wept quietly. Some stared at screens that no longer made sense. Chief Science Officer Moritz kept her hands folded on the table. Her eyes were tired but clear. "We won," she said softly. "We burned their tools. We broke their chains." Admiral Juno Rains did not smile. Victory felt raw. It was not a clean victory. It was not a story with bright endings. The Velthar were defeated. Yes, the cost was bigger than shields and ships. Whole names had been stolen. Whole histories. Shredded. Families had gaps that would never truly close. Rains walked the med bays. She touched shoulders. She listened to stories. Each tale carried its own small grief. A brother found a sister who remembered him and yet could not remember the face of his child. A grandmother returned to a home where a son had no record in any book. People tried to rebuild what had been erased. They wrote new records. They planted new trees. They carved new dates into concrete, but some things cannot be pieced back together. Fleet did not stay long in the place where the world mind once hung. Its light had faded. The living moon's last cry had broken the Velthor Armada, and then, in a soundless way, it had gone still. The humans took what they needed from the wreckage. Shards of alien alloy, fragments of the silver light, devices that hummed with a cold intelligence. Scientists like Moritz studied every chip. Engineers like Ruiz learned how to bend alien tech to human hands. They found hidden deep inside Velthor systems the mechanism for erasure. It was simple and terrible. A lattice of memory keys, a way to remove a name from every mind that had ever heard it. Men and women argued over that discovery. Some wanted to save it. They wanted proof. They wanted to write the name in every book and on every stone. They wanted to build museums and teach every child the story of what had happened. Others wanted the opposite. They feared the name becoming a banner for future hatred. They feared songs and poems that would grow into new wars. They feared the ordinary temptation to repeat cruelty. The debate lasted weeks. Council chambers filled. Voices grew hoarse.
Ow.
The anchored humans, those who had the implants, and therefore remembered, stood at the center of it all. They had the burden of memory burned into their minds. They saw faces no one else could see. They knew names the world could no longer find in old files. They wanted to hold on. But they also saw the danger of letting that memory infect the future. In the end, the human choice was a strange and heavy one. They would not let the Velthar be trophies. They would not let the galaxy turn the war into legend that could inspire a new cruelty. They took the Velthar erasure mechanism. They did not use it on people. They used it only once in a single. A small thing, they erased the name. Not the memory of the deeds, not the faces of the lost, but the single word that named the enemy. Records were changed. Star charts were edited. Archives were sealed. In remote libraries and in the great data vaults of the colonies, the word vanished. Books that mentioned it were left with blank spaces, as if a steady hand had taken a razor to the page. The press printed empty lines where the name once stood. Historian plaques on new monuments bore dates and deeds and nothing more. Families carved the names of their own lost into stone. But those stones never spoke the old enemy's name. The reason was simple and cruel in its sanity. Humans decided that forgetting the name would stop the story from growing teeth. They would remember the scream. They would remember the faces. They would tell their children what had been done and why it must never be done again. But they would not give the enemy a word to dance on tongues. They kept the memory safe and cold, and they closed the doorway that could lead to worship or hatred, so monuments rose. The largest stood in a quiet plain on Luna. It was a ring of black stone, each slab left intentionally blank on one face. On the other side, names were etched 1,000 by 1,000, those who had been taken and then returned, and those who had never come back at all. There were no triumphal beasts, no celebrations. People came and placed small tokens, flowers, empty bottles, pictures. They read aloud the names they remembered. Children learned the stories in careful lessons. They were taught what pain sounded like and how fragile memory could be. They were taught to guard it. Across the colonies, the same silence spread. In markets and in classrooms, people spoke about the war without using the forbidden word. Became a space in their speech, a held breath. They learned to nod at the blank where the name should be. They learned to see grief and not to name the darkness. It felt unnatural at first. It grew into a ritual. Years later, on a small teaching world far from human space, an alien child stood at the elbow of a teacher. The child had never seen a Velthor ship. The child knew only the quiet hum of markets and the bright flags of its city. Curious, it asked, "Teacher, what is that thing that humans fear? The one that took so much?" The teacher looked at the child with tired eyes. He had read the sealed files when he was young. He had been part of negotiations. In the aftermath, he had seen the blank spaces where words had been. He smiled a small, sad smile and said, "There is no such thing." The child repeated the question. The teacher shook his head harder this time. "No, there is no such thing," he said. He did not lie. The word was gone from his language. The name sat only in the private safes of a few human minds. Back on Earth, beneath the ring of black stone, an old woman placed a photograph in the foot of a slab. It was worn at the edges. A child's face looked up from it. She spoke the name once, but only into the stone where the sound could not leave. Her voice was thin, but steady. "Elias," she said, and the name trembled in the cold air like a small fire. Then she covered the photo with her hands and walked away. They had kept the memory. They had stolen the name. The galaxy would carry on without that sound. Only those who had felt the scream would hold the secret inside them. They would teach, quietly, to the next generations. Remember the pain, but do not feed it. Remember the faces, but do not speak the name. And in that choice, flawed and human, they hoped to stop the stars from ever shuddering the same way again.